Cool. Let's talk about stress. Let's talk about the fact that I have tried 3 times now to record this unsuccessfully. Third time, well, fourth time lucky. So yeah, let's talk about stress and the fact that I didn't completely stress out at that. So we recorded it last night. It was supposed to stream over to Facebook, which it did, but there was no audio. So this is we're just going to do it again. Just do it again. Not a problem. Not getting stressed. So this is being recorded on Zoom, and we'll post it over to Facebook shortly after. So let's talk about stress, and let's start with a definition. So stress is the feeling of being overwhelmed or unable to cope with mental or emotional pressure. That's the definition from mentalhealth.org. So stress is the feeling of being overwhelmed or unable to cope with mental or emotional pressure. Now, a psychologist that I follow called Dr. Bill Pettit, he states there is only one mental illness, and that is chronic stress. So that's Dr. Bill Pettit. There is only one mental illness, and that is chronic stress. And I tend to agree with him on that. Now, he believes that no amount of stress is good for us at all. Zero. But I also do the Wim Hof Method. I practice the Wim Hof Method. Now, Wim Hof, if you don't know who he is, he's also called the Iceman. He does all these crazy feats. He's swum under ice water. He's subjected his body to all kinds of stress, all in aid of building resilience and showing us what we're capable of doing. So in the Wim Hof Method, you voluntarily subject yourself to stress to build resilience and to strengthen your immune system. And that's done through cold exposure. It's done through breath work, and it's done through commitment. So literally stretching yourselves every day. Could be like a forward bend, could be a headstand, could be all these different types of physical feats that literally stretch you every day. So that's the commitment pillar of the Wim Hof Method. So too much stress, and I'm talking about like the chronic daily stress, the accumulation of that stress, that's really bad for us. It affects our immune system, right? Bruce Lipton talks about this. If you just look that up on YouTube as well, you'll see that he talks about this quite a lot. How bad stress is for the immune system. And he believes that, again, no amount of stress is good for us, but the nervous system is the interface to the environment, to our external environment. So we have our internal world, we've got the external environment. Our nervous system reads what's going on in the outside world, and our cells react to that. The cells react to what our mind interprets as the environment. And it could be, and it is the case, I guess, that two people can have the same experience, the same environment, be in the same environment, and have totally different responses. And that's because it's based on your interpretation of your environment. And that's what your mind controls, right? Your mind controls your interpretation of the outside world. So yeah, going back to what Bruce Lipton's saying, that our immune systems become suppressed from this stress response. So cortisol and all those other lovely stress chemicals get pumped through our body. Whenever we feel fear, stress, anxiety, worry, the immune system is deregulated, it's compromised due to the fact that the resources that we need for our immune system have been diverted to the nervous system, specifically the sympathetic nervous system, which deals with fight or flight. You've probably heard that term before. This happens automatically. The storm's really bad outside. I'm just pausing there for a second. Don't know if you guys can hear that or not. So it's another good reason to be careful about what you expose yourself to voluntarily, right? So in terms of like what media you consume, who you hang around with, our perception of it though alters our chemistry in our body. So when we're in that stressed feeling, that stressed state, our biology, our chemistry doesn't know the difference between something that's real and something that we're making up. It doesn't know the difference. So we can create this chemistry through fear and through stress and through worry and through anxiety and stuff that suppresses our immune system. In fact, it's so the chemistry is so effective at shutting down the immune system that they're able to actually use those chemicals, those hormones, to suppress our immune system in patients that are having organ transplants. Because what your body would basically reject an organ. It's a foreign body, isn't it? So in order for us to take that transplant better, we have to have the immune system suppressed. So they use stress hormones. The same stress hormones that are pumping through us when we're in a state of hyper alertness, the state that a lot of us are in daily due to our own fears and anxieties and stresses. And that daily accumulation of this really starts to take its toll. We start to experience those psychosomatic effects, and it disempowers us and it makes us vulnerable through the immune system. So another definition that I found is one of the NHS definitions, which I'm going to read, is that stress can be defined as the reaction people have to excessive pressures or other types of demands placed on them. Stress occurs when the demands in our life affect our ability to cope. Stress affects each individual differently. That's true. What one person might find stressful may not be stressful for another. Some stress is actually good for you because it can prompt you into action. I'll go with that. For example, stress can be helpful if it leads you to study for an exam or prepare for a job interview. Okay. However, stress is unhelpful when it leads you to feel overwhelmed, burned out, and unable to cope. So that's the one definition from the NHS. And they will point you in the direction of self-help through, say, like a charity like Mind, for example. Now, I looked on the Mind website, and they encourage you to use techniques to manage your stress, to manage that stress. So you can make general changes to your lifestyle. You could practice being assertive and straightforward in your communication with others. You can use relaxation techniques. You can use making social. You could say you can go out with your friends. You can socialize, make time for hobbies and interests, and yet have a better work-life balance. All those kind of things. All those sort of things that we kind of know we should do anyway. So they're looking at like a technique. They're looking at ways that you can manage stress. Now, I'm not slagging off the NHS or anyone else for that matter, and I think we've made huge advancements in the in physiology and in terms of surgeries and things we're able to do in medicine and stuff. Amazing advancements. But I still think we're completely backwards in terms of psychology. I think that our general levels of mental health in this country are very poor. I think that our levels of stress have never been higher and our levels of mental health have never been lower. The Royal College of Psychiatrists made a statement in April 2021, last year, and their statement was, the country is in the grip of a mental health crisis with children worst affected. I'm going to read that again. I butchered it the first time. The country is in the grip of a mental health crisis with children worst affected. Like I said, we have lower and lower levels of mental health each year, higher and higher levels of stress. There's more and more people taking medication. And something needs to change. Something desperately needs to change. The current paradigm, the current model is not working. It's just not working. The thing that I believe needs to change is our understanding. It's our relationship with stress, not managing stress, not combating stress. It's understanding our relationship with stress and improving our resilience to stress. And our whole paradigm to do with mental health just needs to change. So what I would like to talk about today is a new way of understanding stress that will enable people to feel stress less and improve their own mental well-being. Because stress is generally accepted as part of day-to-day life these days. People wear it well or not. And if they don't, then they have to, if they feel that discomfort, then they can take medication for it. So it's just generally accepted, isn't it? Part of day-to-day life. People feel stressed. People struggle with their mental health. They feel discomfort. They feel tense. They feel low. They feel anxious. We take pills for it. We go and see experts about it. We speak to therapists about it. It's pretty commonplace these days. So I'm going to define stress my definition of stress is the physical and mental tension that a person experiences internally. So I'll say it again. Physical and mental tension that a person experiences internally. Now, it's that feeling of tension, that mental and physical tension, that causes us problems. And it stops us from doing things. It stops us from obviously living the life that we want. And it stops us in day-to-day tasks. It stops us performing. It causes problems at home. Divorce rate has never been higher. It can fuck up things from your golf swing to your relationships. messes up your work life, your school life, your exams. I've been watching some of the Winter Olympics, and Nathan Chen was talking about how he overcame his anxiety and that feeling of pressure by simply going out there and having a good time, and by making that the sole focus of his performance at the Winter Olympics. He said he just wanted to go out there and have fun. And I think that gets lost, doesn't it, these days? We focus on performance rather than, or our performance rather than performing and just having fun. And there was another athlete that said that she was there to deliver the love. She was there to give this gift in her performance. And I thought that was great, and I can relate to that in my days of performing more on stage as a guitar player, as a musician. That once I saw it as giving something, I saw it as giving a gift rather than being under this intense pressure to perform a technically perfect performance each time. Once I saw it as giving a gift, once I saw it as like that, delivering the love, if you like, everything just went a lot smoother. The pressure just dropped. I was able to enjoy playing music a lot more. Now, if we believe that stress is this outside thing, right? It's something that's just in the air, it's outside of us. Quite often we'll do things to avoid it. So we'll stay away from it. So it's a bit like catching a disease. It's just out there. It's going to stop us from doing things, and it's going to stop us from going out. And you hear it when people say, this is stressing me out. You're stressing me out. He's stressing me out. She's stressing me out. This is stressing me out. You very rarely hear people saying, very rarely hear people say, I'm getting stressed. They don't sort of take ownership of the fact that they're getting stressed by something. It's like it's their fault. So a lot of us are dictated to by the outside world. And that, again, just prevents people from living life their way. I'm trying to make this impersonal. I'm trying not to pick on people, individuals, saying you. This is a very human thing, right? This is a very human experience. So if we believe that stress is this thing outside of us that is just going to like rub off on us, or is going to get in our way, then that's going to prevent us from doing what we want in life and being who we want to be and having the things we want to have. And people change their jobs, people change their lifestyle, which is maybe not a bad thing, or they move away from the stress, they move away from the thing that's stressing them out. They'll change their jobs, but they're making these massive life changes in order to have less stress. They want to have less stress. And let's say they work a 9-to-5 job, they come home, they're really stressed, they just want to relax, and they just want a glass of wine or whatever. And that's fine, maybe that's their way of de-stressing. And a lot of my guitar students would say that they play guitar to not feel stressed. So they play guitar to de-stress after a day of work. But what happened with a lot of them was that they would get more stressed because they'd be frustrated that they couldn't play properly. So it's weird, because they're playing guitar and playing music to feel less stress, to have less stress, to wind down, but they ended up putting it down after a while because they were getting really frustrated. You can do things like yoga and meditation and all that, and I've nothing against all that stuff at all. In fact, there's a meditative element in the Wim Hof method and a yoga element to it, I guess, as well. And all those things like yoga and meditation and all that's absolutely fine. But here's the thing. Do you think you'd do a lot better at them if you weren't stressed in the first place? Do you think you get more benefit from doing meditation and yoga in the first place if you weren't stressed? It's interesting, isn't it? You probably perform better at yoga or meditating or playing guitar or whatever if you weren't stressed in the first place, if you had a better relationship with your stress, if you weren't using these things to combat or manage stress. Some of us take drugs, illegal and legal drugs, prescribed drugs to help us with stress. Some of us drink alcohol. And as soon as we've had a sip of booze, we think that's good, that's better. Well, alcohol doesn't work that fast. Whatever approach we take that is dictated to by the outside world, whatever approach we take in order to combat stress or manage stress is a bit like just turning the heat down on the boiling pan. What if you could just turn it off? If you could just turn the heat off completely? You can, but it comes from having a different understanding. It comes from understanding that stress is inside the thoughts in your mind. Stress is inside the thoughts in your mind. That's where stress is generated. That's where it comes from. It's your mind. You can change that. You can change that. You can't change everything and everyone around you. But you can choose to not be affected by your own thoughts. You can choose to not let that affect you and interfere with your life. So, an example that I've used many times, and I've stolen and used this in lots of sessions, is the plank of wood example. There's an example that my mentor told me about. And he said, if you imagine a plank of wood, like 2 foot wide, if we lay that down in your garden, could you walk from one end of the plank of wood to the other without falling off? It's like, yeah, no problem. You could easily do that. If I was capable of doing a cartwheel on a plank of wood, I'd give it a go. Okay, let's imagine that plank of wood is now between 2 buildings, high up in the air, let's say like 80 feet in the air. Could you do it? Could you walk across that same plank of wood? It's the same length, it's the same width, it's exactly the same plank of wood. Let's just pretend for 1 second, though, that it's not stormy like it is today, that it's not like 50-mile-an-hour winds out there. Okay, let's just pretend that it's a really calm weather day. It's the same plank of wood between 2 buildings, but it's like 80 to 100 feet in the air. Could you walk across that plank of wood? The answer is still yes, but a lot of us will say no. No. Why not? You die. You might die. You might end up at the bottom of that building. But it's not. It's your thinking that will stress you out, and that could get you killed. So one of my former guitar students is really good at parkour. And I've seen some of his crazy videos, some of the crazy stunts that him and his mates perform. And I asked him about this, and I said, obviously, that's a really stressful situation to be in, really scary, really risky. Do you think about that? Do you think about like, and you're going to end up at the bottom of that building on the pavement splattered? And he said, no. He said, because the thinking about those kind of things will stress me out and it will get me killed. But if I don't think about it, I'll be fine. So here's someone performing these like really risky kind of stunts and stuff, and like, doing things like walking between two buildings, balancing on the edge of a roof, And he said, if I don't think about it, I'll be just fine. Stress doesn't really exist. It doesn't really exist out there. It just appears to exist. Stress doesn't really exist. It just appears to exist, and it's created by our thoughts. And you have thoughts all the time. We all have thoughts all the time, from the moment we're born to the day we die, from the moment we wake up in the morning to when we go to bed at night. And then we still have thoughts at night. They're called dreams. We have them all the time. The thought machine is always on. It's always on. And we pay attention to our thoughts. We pay attention to these stressful thoughts. Or we interpret a thought as being stressful. So we have a thought about something and it makes us feel stressed. That's because every single thought we have has a feeling attached to it. So if you have a stressful thought, you will feel stressed. If you have a happy thought, you'll feel happy. If you have a sad thought, you'll feel sad. Every single thought we have has a feeling attached to it. So mentally and physically, you will feel that stress. You'll feel that stress that you're thinking about. Our thoughts are directly connected to our feelings. Nothing else. That's how it goes. We have thoughts, we have feelings, and we can literally think ourselves into a different feeling state. You can think yourself into a tense state. You can have a thought that makes you feel tense. You can have thoughts that literally make you sick. I was a champion warrior. I could literally worry myself sick. Even when I was a kid, having that, the Sunday feeling, the back to school feeling on a Sunday night. Yeah, I could literally make myself sick, worrying. So we can think ourselves into any state. We can become sexually aroused just by thinking. We can become annoyed at someone else just by thinking about them. They don't even need to be in the room. We can think of a situation that we've been in and get pissed off or angry at that situation or that story by having a thought about it. Sometimes it's an involuntary thought. It just bubbles up. Why am I thinking about that? So simply by thinking about stuff, we feel it. And when we realize that that's true, we're free. We can be free. When we have that realization, it's called an insight, and it immediately can calm you down, can immediately just dissipate that stress. It can immediately just make it all evaporate, all those fears, worries, anxiety. Changes everything. The only reason we have the feelings we have is because of the thinking we have. The only reason we have these experiences in life is because of how we act or react to the way we feel. And the way that we feel comes from the way we think. So we have a thought, it makes us feel something, we act or react, respond to that, we behave in a certain way, and then that gives us our consequences, if you like. It gives us our experience in life. And human beings realize this all the time. With the thinking that's not serving them so well, they change their thoughts, they change their thinking, they change their mind, and then they feel differently. Now, the great illusion, the great misunderstanding surrounding that is when people think we can't do that. But you can. You can. We 24/7 thinking, unconscious thinking. 90% of our thoughts are unconscious. So trying to figure out which one makes us feel certain ways is kind of hard. It's like looking for a needle in a haystack. So just realizing the fact that you think and that makes you feel whatever you're feeling, whatever you're experiencing, can be really helpful. And don't be frightened of your thoughts. This great Sid Banks quote, which I'm not going to butcher this time. And he said, if the only thing people learned was not to be afraid of their experience, that alone would change the world. Such a great quote. If the only thing people learned was not to be afraid of their experience, that alone would change the world. So not thinking, not responding to your own thoughts, not being so caught up in your own thoughts, not being so wedded to your own thoughts, not being so involved in your own thinking. You don't have to do anything. You just have to realize that. Now, realize there's going to be people listening to this and watching this that will want techniques. They want a strategy. They want something that they can do. Well, you don't need to do anything. Being present, being in the moment is the only thing that doesn't require any effort. It doesn't require you to try anything. So you're thinking, doing more thinking will get you in trouble. And it's the analogy that I use there is when people fall into water and they thrash around in the water, they're flinging their arms about, and they're flinging their legs about, and they're trying to not drown. That's what takes them under. That's what drowns them. Because we innocently think that we have to do something, we have to try and fling our arms about and fling our legs about, which makes no sense at all, to try and regain some control. But you don't need to do that. You don't need to do that. It's thinking that you need to do something that gets you in trouble. You're not in control in that situation. Your thinking will literally drown you. You just need to float. You just need to stay afloat. That's it. A little bit of bobbing is all that's required. Other than that, you'd be absolutely fine. You'd be absolutely fine. If you think that you need to swim in order to be able to float and survive in that water, then you're wrong. If you fall into the water and you think, shit, I can't swim, I'm going to drown, that's what gets you in trouble. So if you want a technique, if you want something to practice, try letting go. Try letting go of your thoughts and not taking everything so personally. Try not to be so wedded to your own thinking and your own thoughts. And also look for the link between thoughts and feelings. Practice that for like a week. Practice that for 7 days. Practice seeing that connection between, oh, well, when I feel that, I must be thinking that consciously or subconsciously. That's what's happening. And it is simple, and it's true, and it's true for all humans. And it is simple. What isn't simple is going around trying to change the environment, trying to change the outside world, trying to manipulate and control other people. That's hard work. That's not going to go well for us. So we have stressful thoughts. We become aware of those stressful thoughts through the power of consciousness. And then we choose to respond to those feelings and thoughts, or we can react to them and behave in a different way. And that's what creates our experience. So what is that experience for you? You know, what's going on for you right now? What's causing you that mental pain and that physical tension? What does stress stop you from doing? Now, I'm not sat here like some enlightened guru. I'm human. So I still get stressed. I still get pissed off at stuff all the time. But I know where it's coming from. I'm human. And I still have good days and bad days. But the outside world doesn't have any control over me. It doesn't have any power over me. It doesn't. Not when it comes to that. Not when it comes to feeling stress. See, I'm not in control of the outside world. I know that I'm not in control of the weather. I know that I'm not in control of whether my computer fucks up. I know that I'm not in control of if a microphone stops working. I know I'm not in control of anything in the outside world, but I am in charge. I am in charge. I'm not in control. I'm in charge. That's my interpretation of it. And you know what? It makes me feel better. Just completely reframing it that way makes everything better. Now, that's the understanding. That's the understanding that we have thoughts, and attached to those thoughts a feeling. Then we can choose. We're going to react, we're going to respond to that thought. We're going to behave in a certain way because that's going to have consequences. That's going to create our experience in life. It's really common for humans to take a while to catch on to an understanding. But when we get it, it changes everything. And huge advancements can be made when we catch on to an understanding and realize, oh, that's where we're going. I keep thinking of the example of how quickly we went from like having our transport industry 100 years ago or whatever was basically horse and cart. And then within a couple of decades, everyone was driving. And 100 years ago, things were very different. 100 years ago, you couldn't go to a GP and just take a pill to make you feel better. You can go and talk to a therapist. Not if you weren't very rich, and not if you didn't have hundreds of hours at your disposal to spend in therapy. But you relied on a support system. You relied on people around you. And people weren't as afraid of their experience. Think about all the misunderstandings we had. We didn't know about germ theory before. Surgeons, doctors used to perform surgery. They used to deliver a baby with one set of instruments and use the same set of instruments to perform an autopsy. That's my stomach hungry. Must be nearly time to finish. Foundations of all these great discoveries come from insight, and an insight is a fresh thought. It's a fresh thought that just pops in. It's that aha, it's the light bulb moment. It's a bit Alan Partridge then. It's created from fresh thought. So you have to let go of that way of thinking in order for a new thought to bubble up. So when we catch on to that, when we get that understanding, it is like leveling up. So when you have an insight and you wake up, if you like, for want of a better term, you wake up and you see that it's true. It is like leveling up. See, it's not illness, it's not a mental illness, it's mental wellness. Having an understanding of where your feelings come from and understanding that at the very core of well-being is this understanding, this wisdom, innate wisdom, love, compassion. Those are all the core elements. Those are the core elements of being at peace, having peace of mind. So my intention for today wasn't to try and take stress away from you or from anyone. Wasn't to try and make your life easier in terms of getting rid of your boss or telling your annoying partner to stop annoying you or anything like that. It's to make you see where stress really comes from and to help you feel stress less. So it's not the situation, it's our thoughts about the situation that are making us feel stressed. So let it go. Practice letting it go. Don't take it personally. Get curious. Try and see it from a different angle. Try and see things differently. Stop taking your own thinking so seriously. Stop believing your own thinking. Do less. Do less. Why would you want to keep thinking a certain way if it's causing you to feel pain? Why would you want to hang on to those thoughts if they're causing you to feel stressed? Let it go. Let it fall away. They will fall away. It's a bit like the metaphor of the clouds in the sky. they just pass if you let them. You don't try and keep your eye on one cloud. Once those clouds go, you have the beautiful blue sky behind it. So, I mean, that's one of the oldest metaphors in psychology. But someone said one the other day that was really cool, and that was like shutting down the screen on your laptop. If they had too much screen time, just shut the screen down on the laptop. Stop engaging so much in your own thinking. So I'm going to finish with a quote again from Bill Pettit. And he says, "The innocent misuse of the power of thought is at the root of all human suffering." So the innocent misuse of the power of thought is at the root of all human suffering. So yeah, I just thought that was a really good quote to finish on. If anyone has any questions, or if anyone wants to continue, a discussion of sorts on this, then I'd be more than happy to hear from you. You can email me, jimmykanecoaching@gmail.com. Website is wanderingstarwellbeing.com. And I hope you found this useful, and feel free to share. Take care. Speak soon.